We had awful storms there in the great state of Georgia. And here recently, boy, from what I hear, Scotty, there may be some furtherance of inclement weather that may be coming. Wade, I think I hear you mention that at the table. We might get a chance to see that we learn anything, as a result of it. And so we just, our office there in the Stockbridge area, of course, we had to shut down and close for, approximately almost 3 days. And of course, all those things that they impact production and things of that nature. And I've never been an excuse-ridden individual. I've often said there's a difference between excuses and reasons. And so it's important to note that we put excuses on one side of the ledger and we put reasons on the other side of the ledger. And I would certainly say that in this old crazy life in which we live, we've all had probably our fair share of excuses, and but certainly I've learned over the years that, believe it or not, there are reasons for a lot of things that take place. Some we can control and others we can't. There are reasons. But I will say that something mentioned earlier in the first session, and again, I think Scotty started out really capturing this, is that I fundamentally believe that faith is the substance that drives the engine. It really is, and a little dose of it every day is a good thing. When I first came aboard, one of the most impressive things I learned about One Life was that it was unapologetic about its faith-based position. I can tell you that in this nation in which we live, that's a rarity. Now that's not to suggest that business must not be conducted. Our Lord would want us to be stewards, great stewards, of the work that we have been all so fortunate and blessed to be able to participate in. But it's neat to be able to walk into even my call center there in Stockbridge. And we start our meetings off with devotions. You don't see that every day. You don't see it in the workplace every day. And certainly, if that doesn't tell you fundamentally what you are linking up to, I don't know what will. I don't. There is absolutely no greater comfort than knowing that there is this idea of integrity. There is this idea of unbelievable commitment that resonates tremendously throughout this entire organization. And I am awfully glad once again to be a part of it, and just a very, very small part. And so I am wanting to echo those sentiments just once more, that I really believe the key to long-term sustainability, I really believe that, our founder and owner of this company prays. You don't become that successful if you've never, as we say in South Georgia, a good old Our Father who art in heaven. That works in a lot of places. And when you're in the final expense business and you're in sales, you better be praying, So certainly that's a welcome entity. And I certainly hope that those of you who are here for the first time, you've taken great stock in that. So critical and so important. And of course, then we're off to business again. And that said, this old, I guess it's a joke, if you will. I'm not the best jokester in the world. But that old fella got up one morning and decided, that he wanted eggs and bacon for breakfast. So he decided he'd go out to the farm and he would ask the chicken if the chicken might accommodate him. And the chicken said, "Oh, absolutely, I'll accommodate you. How many do you want?" "Oh, 4 or 5 would be just fine." And sure enough, the chicken decided to give the farmer 4 or 5 eggs. He's got his eggs for the morning. He said, "Well, I also think I want a little bacon." And so he goes on down the hallway there and he goes to the pig. He said, "I'd love to have a little bacon." And the pig said, "Now, you know what that means, don't you?" "Yeah, that's what that means." And so the pig said, "I'm willing to do that." And so the chicken was listening. So you didn't know this part of it, did you? The chicken was listening. And the chicken wasn't just listening, the chicken was laughing. Just because, you see, the chicken was just involved. But the pig was totally committed. Y'all with that? Totally committed. And so the chicken is laughing at the pig who's committed, but the chicken is just involved. In other words, the chicken, is just making a little bit of a contribution. But the pig is making the ultimate sacrifice. You see, in this business, you got to ask this question. Am I in it just to be involved a little bit? Or am I really in it to make the ultimate sacrifice and totally devote myself and commit myself so that a lot of things might happen? Personal prosperity, doing exemplary things that you never thought you could soar to and do. Well, this chicken is laughing around the building. You know what? You got to make the ultimate sacrifice. He's laughing and cracking up and having a great time. And all of a sudden, the man's wife runs out the door and said, "Oh, can you get me some wings for lunch?" Yeah, that commitment's a powerful thing, isn't it? It's a powerful thing is what it is. We talk about that, and I often say, one of the very most difficult things there is to do is to be committed to anything. Because, the question becomes, what influences are around us? Where did we really drive our stakes in the ground? And when winds blow, as they will in life and in business and in families, the wind does not always stay the same. It does sway and it does blow. And the question becomes, commitment. See, here's what I believe. I believe commitment is not something that's discovered along the way. I think commitment is established on day one. Y'all with that? On day one. On day one, you're committed. You're committed on day one. I think if you allow room to just be involved, then what will happen is you'll be like the chicken. And you'll stand behind the building and you'll laugh at those that are committed in spite of the rigorous challenges or even the slight change of direction that something might take. But the point is that commitment is something that's established quickly on day one. And there are no mitigating circumstances that really show up to change those directions. Now, unless, in fact, there are very obvious reasons that wouldn't want to be committed, okay? But even that's established on day one. That's even established on day one. I say it because it's interesting. I told you couldn't get away from football with me. I'm back at it again. I love it, Mr. Parker. I just love it. You know what? I told the Lord. I said, listen, you must have a football field up there somewhere. You got to have one. I know you got to have one. I mean it. You got to have one. And if you don't have one, I want to get on the committee to help get one up here. That's what's got to happen. So I'm back at this football thing again, and I can tell you this. And I would often say that it's a game of unbelievable lessons. And, so many things teach us lessons in life, but football is no exception to that. And so I will say this, National Signing Day for high schoolers, y'all aware of that, is Wednesday the 5th. And those Ole Miss Rebels and those Mississippi State Bulldogs are competing for those final recruits. And this is what you call a dead period. So 48 hours prior to National Signing Day, there's a dead period where you can't talk to recruits. Coaches can't talk to them. Wink, wink. But nonetheless, it's a very aggressive time. And so I found that these high schoolers, young kids are so impressionable, and, they change their mind every 5 minutes. You just, they say they're going to do one thing, and then they decide they'll do something else. And they're just not going to have the stick-to-itiveness that's necessary to see things through. I am convinced that there is a stick-to-itiveness that you must have if you're committed. There's a stick-to-itiveness. That's not easy to grasp, by the way. Because it's the easiest thing to do is to be like the chicken and be involved and stand behind the building and laugh. But the stick-to-itiveness is a unique characteristic that very few people ever ascertain to. So these young recruits, it's interesting, you know, they have what you call soft verbals. You know what a soft verbal is? I don't know if I know what a soft verbal is, but they're soft verbals. I guess he basically said, yeah, I might come. I don't know how much stock you want to hang in that if you're the coach of that team. Then there are hard verbals, where a guy, oh boy, I'm just in it, I'm doing it, I've got it done. And then there's the National Signing Day. And so any verbal given prior to National Signing Day, you know, if it's not in ink, it's just a verbal. You know, that used to be a day, and a lot of us are old enough, Ms. Parker, where a man would shake your hand. Y'all remember that day? There were no documents involved. I think my grandfather told me this. When he'll come shake your hand, and his word was his bond. And it was as solid as oak. Because I believe he believed that there was an integrity factor involved, that when you got a man's handshake, you got a man's handshake. And he stuck to it, is what he done. Now, there could be consensual and mutual agreement between the two parties that there could be the possibility that we might go separate ways. But you know what? That's all inclusive on day one. And so these recruits get to a point where National Signing Day comes, and then there are faxes that are sent from the institution to the high school. And the faxes come through, and the high school coach, the college coaches, they are on pins and needles, waiting on that fax to return so that he can get that recruit's commitment. Okay? So I can imagine on National Signing Day, there are a lot of folks on pins and needles about that 3, 4, 5-star recruit that they were hoping they were going to gain. So there goes that commitment letter going back to that coach, or it doesn't return. My son, a year ago, learned some things about commitment. Oh, and you know, I'm the football enthusiast. I'm into it. I'm into it. His mama just tell me to get out the way and just let the boy do it. And so he signed a scholarship to go to Kent State University. And here's the thing, it was amazing. 2 days before National Signing Day, he gets an offer from Wake Forest. Now, that's the ACC. That's the ACC conference. He would have been playing in the South. And then something else happened, Scotty. I told you these circumstances that will impact commitment and throw in a wrench in what you said you do and what you will actually do. Because believe it or not, life and circumstances will test your what? Your commitment, absolutely. It'll test it. And sure enough, here's this young fellow, my son, he's just turned 18 years old at that time. And the letter comes through, and he's getting ready to do all his signings and all those things. And sure enough, Wake Forest comes on board and offers him a full ride to go to Wake Forest. And I said to him, what are you going to do? And here's what's amazing. Another wrench was thrown into it. The coaching staff that recruited him from Kent State left and went to Purdue University. In the last hour. Hang on to that one. They took off on him. Well, they had been recruiting him for a year. Darrell Hazel, go look him up online. He's the head coach at Purdue. They won 1 game. Bless their heart. Boilermakers, I tell you what. Oh, Boilermakers. Well, what's amazing is that I said, well, what are you going to do? We go, and I said, I'll tell you what you do. You need to go and visit the new coach at Kent, is what you need to do. Give him a sporting chance. And sure enough, he said, Dad, you know, I'm not really concerned about the new coaches. He says, I'm going to stick to my commitment. I said, really? And so the teacher is being taught by the pupil here, folks. I'm telling you right now. He says, Dad, no, I'm going to stick with. I said, now, Wake Forest, ACC, you know, you're going to go play in the MAC? And so he says, you know what, Dad? I started this journey with him, and I'm going to finish it. And he says this. He says, I'm going to go to Kent State. I said, knowing all that you know, I said, that's not your head coach. He's not the one that recruited you. You know they're going to have another linebacker coach that wasn't as into you, that's probably not going to be as into you as the one that recruited you. What are you going to do? He says, I'm going to Kent State. And sure enough, the letter of intent, Scotty, came through the fax machine at the school. And it came through, and I wanted to test him. I picked it up, and I said, come here. I said, here it is, moment of truth. What are you going to do? I said, you're going to Wake Forest? Wake Forest sends a scholarship through. I said, there it is. Wake, Kent. He looked at me and immediately reached for the Kent State piece, scholarship, and signed it. I said, you're young, but that's maturity. I said to him, I have no idea what's in store for you there, nor do I know what you'll be missing at Wake. But the fact of the matter is that at age 18, you understand commitment. That's what I'm most proud of. And he signs it, and off he goes. And he's currently at Kent State. He said, Dad, it's freezing up here. I said, I know it's about 55 in Wake. I'm messing with him. But I said, have you had any second thoughts? Nope, I'm adjusting. And I said to him, here's what you can't see. You can't see the integrity involved in that. And you can't see the character involved in that. And I know you truly don't fully understand the commitment involved in that. And you decided that you would give your commitment to Kent State University regardless of what surfaces later down the road or whatever circumstances arise. I said, son, you have gained and you've not lost. And I don't know all that will be there for you at Kent. But you're going to be able to sit in your living room one day, one of these days, and you're going to be able to tell your son the importance of commitment, the importance of stick-to-itiveness, the importance of not allowing eventual circumstances that may change your course. Because really the circumstances doesn't have anything to do with you as much as the idea that I'm committed to something means more. And I love the fact that every day we get a chance to get up in the morning and go to our workplaces and work like the pig worked. Is that I'm here for the ultimate sacrifice. There is no plan B. There is no plan C. Great people and great successful people, successful companies, Fortune 500 companies become Fortune 500 companies, and billion-dollar companies become billion-dollar companies because they have no plan B. Someone said it biblically. That Jesus recruited. I love recruiting in football. I love recruiting in One Life. We do a ton of recruits here, you're here. And there's a lot of recruiting in other aspects of life. And even biblically, Jesus recruited, right? Those 12 boys. Whew, had they known what they were walking into, you know. But with blind faith, and it wasn't so blind, he brought those boys into that thing. And the bottom line mission was this: what if they fail? What if I fail if I embark upon this endeavor? Do I really want to be that committed? Through storm and rain, through challenges and setbacks and all the things that come with business? Or do I just want to be involved? And I'm kind of looking for a way around the corner. Well, the bottom line was that there was no plan B for the disciples. If the disciples fail, folks, there is no one life. You talk about commitment. If the disciples fail, there is no redemption. And I'm very thankful that they didn't. Through Christ, they didn't. But the question that I would leave with you tonight as I leave you for my final time with you is that, are you going to be like the chicken who's just a little involved and here's the deal, thought he had a plan B? Until mama wanted some wings. And when mama wanted some wings, the chicken discovered that, you know what, the only way to really go in life is to go all out. Listen, if you're going to go in life, hey, go all out. Don't half go at it. Go all out at it. You know, I would rather go all out with one or two than to go half speed with 1,000. Listen, go all out. Go all out. Trust your systems. Trust the giftedness and talent that's in you. Trust your passion and your skill set, what you've learned in training. And you know what? Let every setback be a setup. Let every one of them be that. And have the resolve to say, you know what? He's not the only one that can master a final expense. I too have a seat at the table, and I can literally motivate myself and drive myself and skill myself to the levels of exemplary work so that I can look at my portfolio and discover, you know what? That's not a chicken. I'm a pig. Have a good night.